All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this week's podcast or YouTube video, whichever one you're watching. If you guys don't know, I am Domi, and I'm actually here with the super special guest today, Maddie. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I actually, this is my first guest in a long time. But just so everyone knows, I am now starting a new Go Your Own Way interview series where I interview people who have gone their own way off the beaten path, and what it was like, the struggles they faced, all that great stuff. So if you're struggling to take a risky leap, this is going to be the interview series for you because it's going to be about a bunch of people who took that risky leap. Or what seems to be a risky leap because, in the end, sometimes it's riskier just to kind of stay and follow everyone else, I feel like. But without further ado, Maddie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to. So, my name is Maddie. I know it says Madeline, but my Instagram says Madeline. My coach calls me Mad Dog, Mad Money. Like
Lots of
it's
nicknames.
lots of nicknames, but you can call me Maddie. And I am a business coach for health and fitness entrepreneurs. And I'm sure we'll get to this in the questions, but I started my entrepreneurial journey as a certified personal trainer, and then somehow got landed a job in social media marketing after I decided I liked building my business more than wasting time or no, I shouldn't say wasting, but spending all my time and training clients in the gym and training clients privately for money. And I somehow landed a social media marketing job, and then COVID hit, and next thing I knew, I was a business coach. So that's a little bit
Next thing
about
I knew,
next thing I knew.
we're gonna have to talk about that switch in that journey, but we'll get there.
We'll
We
get
will
there.
get there.
Mhm.
So one of the reasons why, and we talked about this a bit, but one of the reasons why I obviously wanted you as one of my first guests is because I know that, and there's probably a lot of people out there who maybe went to college and then are probably maybe working not with, with their degree at all and are starting to wonder what the point it was. I give myself a lot of excuses as to why. I feel like college was a good experience for me, but there's still a lot of things that I wish I had done differently about it and or not quite done that
Mhm.
specifically. But the
Yeah.
reason I invited you onto the show is because I know you decided not to. So would you like
Yes.
to talk about that?
Yes, I would love to talk about that. So, it was definitely so here's the breakdown. So, when everybody in high school was applying to colleges, and everybody was getting so excited, they were getting accepted in. Obviously, they were going to these either public or private universities, so they tended to get the application yay or nay letter before. I decided to go to I wanted to go at the time, I wanted to go to community college and transfer into a public university just to save some big bucks, save some money. um and it was really crazy because I had enrolled, paid tuition in full for my community college that I was going to go to. I had all my classes. I was actually going to go for nutrition in hopes to become a registered dietitian, just because obviously, if you look at my career path, I tend to mere or sheer, well, words. I don't know what word I was trying to say. Go to more of like obviously the health and fitness side of careers and things like that. So it was crazy because literally I remember, I think it was 2 weeks before classes kicked off, I had this really strange, I guess almost, I don't want to call it a spiritual awakening, but it was kind of like a really deep intuitive gut feeling. And I felt really bad because my dad had paid it in full, and obviously I got it back, just because of the time frame. But I was like, this is not it. I was like, there's something telling me that this is not for me right now. And I had played around with the idea of doing something like a leap year or gap year, not leap year, gap year, and and that was in the back of my mind. So I was like, okay, maybe this whole thing is just telling me to take a gap year or something, work a little bit, get some money under my belt. I don't know. I wanted to move out. That was my biggest thing. I wanted to move out on my own. And I knew it was going to be really hard to have a job and go to college. Obviously, I know so many people that do it, But let's be real, having a job and going to college,
It's
from
really
what
tough.
I have heard, obviously, yeah, since I didn't go, um,
Yeah, I
it's
managed to find
hard.
the easiest job I could possibly work in college, which is working
Yeah.
at a desk in my dorm.
Yeah, yes.
Easiest one.
That works. Um, but yeah, so I was what are you doing? Sorry, my cat is literally going crazy.
It's good. This is unedited, guys.
Good, yeah, because this is real and raw. My cat's trying to like eat the blinds. But anyways, so um yeah, so I basically was like, yeah, this is not it. Something's not right. I was walking dogs at the time to make money because
Mhm.
obviously we talked about it on the clubhouse room. I worked since I was legally able to work at 15 years old. And so I was walking dogs and I was like, okay, maybe I can just make some money off of this, go get an apartment, whatever. And that's really what ended up happening. I made some pretty decent money walking dogs. I mean, I was walking dogs for a good like 5 to 6 hours a day, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're walking for 5 to 6 hours, it kind of takes a toll on you. And yeah, I moved out, and that was kind of the whole basis behind my whole like, okay, am I doing a gap year? What am I doing? Am I going to go to college in a year? Who knows? So,
Wow. Like, it's I'm kind of curious because I feel like there's a lot of people that go into like they feel like they have to do college. And there's some people that
mhm.
obviously very much want to because it's like it's a step towards goals, like people maybe who want to be doctors and stuff like that. I
Yeah,
feel like
true.
there's a lot of us that go in and we all maybe feel a little bit of what you felt, but we kind of ignore it. So, I
Yeah,
did you
that's so
were is
true.
that how you felt at first? Like, did you feel like were you ignoring it for a bit and then
I think I think I was a little bit, but it wasn't like in the back of my mind. It was kind of like this like subconscious thing that I was thinking about. And I really wanted to become a registered dietitian. Like I had every passion, and at first this is like, I don't know, maybe this is why I'm such a good like entrepreneur, is because my mind is literally all over the place. But I wanted to be a meteorologist before I wanted to be a registered
Oh my god.
dietitian.
You know what? I wanted to be an
And
architect and I ended up being a journalist, so whatever.
yeah, and like it was crazy because, well, I really wanted to, and then I found out that in order to become a meteorologist, you basically have to become like a lower tiered engineer, and the classes are ridiculous. And I'm okay, I'm good at math, but I'm not that good at math. Like I don't know. My boyfriend tells me all the time. He's like, "You probably could have done it." Like everyone was like, "Oh yeah, I could totally see you as a meteorologist, like on TV, and things like that."
I
And
was like, "I don't wanna study that
yeah, I
long."
was like, I'm not trying to like kill myself studying this whole, I didn't even know there's such thing as a calculus 3. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
there's a calculus everything.
Like, okay. But yeah.
Well, that's really so what kind of I guess after that, what was your next move then? Like what at that point, what did you know that you wanted? Because clearly there's a reason why you decided not to go to college. Like, what is it that you knew that
Yeah.
you wanted at that point?
I wanted I think the biggest thing that spoke to me is I wanted to be different, and I wanted to do like like a untraditional path. And that was something that kind of scared me. And I knew that I wanted to do an untraditional path. And I was like, okay, yeah, maybe becoming a registered dietitian is untraditional. I don't know, but there's so many registered dietitians out there. But I was like, okay, so that's not really untraditional. But it was just deep down, it just didn't feel right. And um, yeah, I just felt like there was something bigger for me, and I knew it in the back of my mind. That's why I attempted to do the whole network marketing thing. Unfortunately, that really honestly didn't work out. I that was my first like entrepreneur type of feel.
Mhm.
And so that really didn't work out. But it was from that experience that I was like, okay, no, this is what I want. Cause I had started that with that company when I was still in high school, because I turned 18 in high school.
Oh, okay.
And so I started it, and I obviously, like I said, didn't work out, but I knew from that experience, I don't regret that experience, because I found out that this whole business entrepreneur route was what I wanted to take and do for myself in a career.
Oh, that's so that's kind of, and I know that you've gone on a journey, so we'll kind of get to the
Yeah.
actual entrepreneur journey itself, but I'm actually interested, and I think this is something that the audience would probably want to hear too.
Mhm.
How did people react when you kind of made this decision to not go to college, and how did it affect your next step, I guess?
So my oh, the screen is doing something
Don't
very weird.
let, let's ignore that.
We'll
Okay,
ignore
well,
that.
it's
Um,
fine. It's fine. I'm here. I'm still
it's
here. This is totally
I'll turn the
unedited.
video off, it's fine. So it was kinda crazy because my dad was really supportive. And he's always been my right hand like person. Like
Mhm.
he literally doesn't question anything that I do. When I went and impulsively bought a new car and I called him on the phone, I said, "Dad, I just bought a new car. Hey, you're going to get your car back." Cuz I was driving, he had bought a car, he'd bought a Jeep for himself and I drove it through high school, and then when I was 19, I had already moved out. It was giving me so many problems, and it was more to like at that moment to like fix the car versus going and getting a new one basically. So whatever, that happened. And he gave me a little bit of crap for like maybe 2 minutes, and then he was like, "Well, it's your choice. Like honestly, it's your money, it's your choice." He's always been very supportive of me. My mom, when I told her I wasn't going to college, she was a little, she at the time, well, she's still dating the same guy, but I don't know if he had a little bit of an influence on her, but the two of them were just like, "What are you doing?" Like, "Okay, that's your plan, but what, like why?" Like they weren't upset, but they were like, "What are you going to do?" Like that's the
Yeah.
question. What are you going to do? Because obviously you can't just sit at home. And they knew I was literally busting my ass walking dogs and I was making money from it, but they were like, "Okay, what's the next step?" And I was like, "Well, right now, like this is what I want to do." I was like, at the time I was like, I'm walking dogs, I'm making money. I really couldn't care less right now. I'm thinking about the future. Yeah.
You're a
Um
very live in the moment person, I feel like, where you're just like, you make a
yeah,
decision, you're just like, "You know what? I'm gonna figure it out."
exactly. That's literally me.
Gotta figure I feel like there's a lot of people that don't have that for sure. Like, I know, like, for me, like, one of the reasons why I kept doing things I didn't wanna do is
Mhm.
because I needed to feel I felt like I needed to figure it out. Like, I had to know what my next step was but I think it's kind of cool to see the other side of it where you're just like, "You know what? I'm just gonna figure it out. I know this is what I don't wanna do, so
Yes.
let's do that first, and then we'll see what
Yeah.
happens."
I feel like that's a lot of my, I guess, my mindset and the way that I think. I don't want to say I'm impulse. I have a very solid reason behind what I
Well,
do,
yeah.
but I tend to do kind of crazy things that most people wouldn't do
Yeah.
without thinking about it for way
It
longer.
it probably appears impulsive to other people, but, like,
Yeah.
you're obviously putting thought into it. They just don't see that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, I especially with my mom and her boyfriend, like, I try explaining it to them, and, obviously, her boyfriend has, I don't wanna say, like, daughter issues, but he doesn't have the greatest relationship with his daughters, and he's really trying to mend that relationship, and I think sometimes he means out of love, but he treats me as one of his daughters, and
Okay.
he probably just wanted the best for me. Obviously, he said that, but at the
Mhm.
time, it was very discouraging for him to be like, "Well, you're not going to college, like, what are you doing? Like, why? What's next?" Which it makes sense, but
Mhm.
and then obviously I had a boyfriend at the time. He was supportive of everything that I did, but um I found, obviously we had broken up, but it was because we were just such different people.
Mhm.
And I think that decision really showed the difference between him and I and what we were kind of wanting to do in our careers. And it just, and
And
obviously,
and the life you wanted just in
yeah,
general, right?
yeah, exactly. So it was crazy. My relationships changed a little bit, and it wasn't bad or anything. And now they, fortunately have seen what I've been able to create for myself. And,
They're like,
now they're
"Whoa."
like, "Oh my God, I'm so proud of you." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks. But you kind of weren't very supportive in the beginning."
That's
So I'm saying,
always happens. Did this happen with your friend? Like, do you have any friends who all maybe looked at it too kind of
ooh,
strangely? I'm kind of interested in that because I've had reactions like that myself.
yeah. Well, I think we've all experienced, if we post, well, me personally, I never got a new account for my business. I basically merged my personal account to my business account because I was like, this is my brand. If you don't like
Saw
it,
that.
I
I
was like, if you don't
noticed.
like it, leave. That's just sucks for you. But yeah, there was obviously there's people that unfollowed me. And I was like, that's great. I never really cared for you anyways, honestly.
I got rid of most people from high school off of my pages.
People from high school that you like knew, like you were acquaintances with, and you were like, whatever.
Okay.
But as for like my really close friends and like some of my like my best friend, for example, um, her and I like she's actually my intern right now. It's kind of funny because she's in her junior year, finishing up her junior year of college. And so it was crazy because obviously my friends and her, like we have a really good relationship. I think just because on a personality level, we click so well. So it really would take a lot for us to not become friends. And she was very supportive. But I will say the one thing that I ran into and how I some kind of lost some of my friends that weren't really like best friends or really, really close to me
Mhm.
is because they were supportive, but they didn't understand exactly like what I was going through. And even
Yeah.
like, my best friend doesn't know. Like, let's be honest, she doesn't. And I've actually talked to Crystal about this, and she was like, maybe you're what you need from like a support standpoint is finding a group of people that actually like biz besties, that actually are going through.
Exactly. And,
Yeah,
oh my God, I know I know that's it. And this is one of the biggest issues I see with people is that they have people who they know are supporting them, but they don't understand why it still feels wrong. But you don't like you sitting there and just like, I know they're supporting me in some weird way, but there's still something off about this. And what's off is that they don't understand.
yeah,
They don't get what you're going through. So it's hard for them to support you because they don't, they're not experiencing it.
yeah. That's so true. That's so true. And it's something that we still meet up every now and then. Like we're still friends, and it is hard because obviously I've never been the like party person. I've
Yeah.
never
You
wanted
go to
to.
college to go and experience
Yeah,
that.
that was the one thing when people were like, "Oh, you're gonna miss out on the college experience." I was like, I don't care." Like everybody, oh, I want to party. I want to get drunk.
Honestly, the only reason I'm happy I went to college, let's be real, because I made friends through that sort of thing, but
That's true. That's
and messed up and I have funny stories, so.
Yeah. And it's like I'm a very extroverted person, but when it comes to things like that, I'm a little introverted. I'm like, I really honestly, if I missed out on that phase of my life, yeah, like I think about it sometimes, but honestly, I've gotten to the point where it doesn't bother me anymore.
Mhm.
I see that I'm going to be able to travel. I'm going to be able to literally not have tens of thousands of dollars of debt. Like I
Yeah,
think
there's that.
about things like that some of my friends, I feel like unfortunately they're never going to have like in the society just tied to their desk and still having to pay off debt when they're like 40 years old and all this stuff. And that was just something I did not want.
Yeah, no, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I so kind of let's kind of like move on to the rest of your journey as well because I'm now we've talked about the beginning of it because I think that that's the hard part for a lot of people
Mhm.
is starting understanding how to manage the current relationships you have. Um, I guess so what was your like when did you decide on your next step and how did that come to pass? I know it was I think it was the physical training, the
Oh
trainer,
yeah,
right?
yeah. From when I was walking dogs
Oh,
to
right.
when I got certified, yeah, when I got my personal training certification.
That's what it was.
So I had this is a learning experience. Let's talk about this for a second.
Yeah, I love this.
I was walking dogs in my hometown and it was great. Like honestly, I was making bank. Like I really honestly was hustling to make that money and it was great, but I made the mistake of moving the next town over just to get a cheaper rent. And
Mhm.
what I was like, okay, well, I have this rapport over here, I can probably build up my dog walking and cat carrying clientele over in this next city. Well, that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So money started to get a little interesting. And I was like, I have rent to pay. I have things I need to pay, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I think it's time. Obviously, I can't walk dogs forever. Not saying that's like a bad career choice. Like there's people that literally do that. That's amazing for them. But I was like, there's a next step for me. What is that? So I really started digging into like, okay, what are some quote unquote careers or professions that I can kind of dip into quicker than going to college. Because again, I did not want to go to college. I was like, all right, there's got to be some sort of certification program or something. And I stumbled across personal training, and I was like, wow, well, I played sports all through high school. I'm a gym junkie. I was like, all right, like let's dip into this. Um, I decided to do it, went and studied, got certified. And honestly, that was the next step for me, transitioning into that. And I did that for a year. I trained clients both in person and online. And then also I worked a part-time gym job. So I was working pretty much like 10-hour days. Obviously I had breaks in between that, but it was pretty exhausting.
Oh my God. Like I was
Yeah.
gonna say that does seem pretty, it kind of I worked at a tennis company before I did
Yeah.
this whole thing. I was not a tennis guy. I coached like the little toddlers. That was about it. But I remember that some of the coaches there would work, I remember they would work like 10, 12-hour days occasionally with barely any breaks, frankly.
Yeah, it's rough.
But I do remember that, and I was just like, "It's gotta be exhausting." Like, even if no matter how much you love tennis or working out or whatever it is, like, not that much.
Yeah, and that was the part where I think I don't wanna say I got burnt out, but I was starting to, especially when I had moved back. So I moved from this other town over back to my hometown, and that's when I picked up the part-time gym job a little bit more, and it became a little bit, I don't wanna say it was full-time because I was still training in-person clients and I had my online clients. But that's when I was like, I'm trading time for money. Even though I love this, I love my clients and things like that. I was physically having to go to work. I was physically having to go to the gym. I was having to drive to some of my clients' houses because
Mhm.
some of them had like in-house gyms and all that stuff. And again, it was like the whole time for money thing. So
What was kind of the deciding factor there where you were just like, "Okay, this is also not what I wanna do?"
yeah, so then there's the next transition where I went from personal trainer to social media marketer. I don't know how, like I said, I literally don't know how in God's
You
green
try things out, right? That's what we do.
I don't know how I landed that job, but I did. And I think it's because when I was merging from the two, I did start to pick up some like, I went through Upwork. So I went through Upwork,
Mm.
started getting some like social media, like management gigs basically. And I think that's kind of what got me, but also when I did get the job, they were I think I interview really well, and also I had to do like a whole presentation for it, and they were just honestly amazed with like my professionalism.
You have a really good presence. You just have a good professional presence.
And I think, yeah, I think that's what basically sold them. And it was between me and three other people, and
Mhm.
I had gotten it. And I only worked there for literally, I think, 2 months, and then COVID hit.
Yeah, there is that. Oh, but so like at that point, did you stop doing the personal training stuff mostly?
Yeah, once I had gotten that job, I mean, it was a 8 to 4, so I was
Gotcha.
working full time. And I talked about it yesterday too. Like I thought I had hit the big money. I was like, holy crap! Like I'm making a substantial income for somebody my age. I have a full time job. I have health and I'm getting health insurance. Obviously, it took a couple of days or
Mhm.
couple. It was going to take a couple of months to kick in.
Yeah, they always do that, like 90 days or
Still didn't
something.
get that because obviously COVID,
Oh, man. Oh my god.
so I thought I had hit home. Like I was like, wow, I just did this. You know, it was one of those things. I was like, I wasn't 100% happy, but I told myself, I was like, look, like I'm making the most money I've ever had. The job is pretty easy. Like I don't need to sit in the office for more than 3 hours a day. Then I can go home and work from home. Like it was a pretty good gig. Like it was a good job. Um,
Would you have stayed with that if COVID hadn't hit?
You know, I probably would have, but I think around maybe now, if not earlier, I probably would have felt like I needed to do something.
Yeah, like, you'd be like, "Wait, I think this also isn't the thing."
Yeah. And I think here's the thing, it's like part of me has this internal voice in my head where I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be happy enough. Like, I'm never going to be happy with whatever I do. Um, but also the other part of me is like, no, those things literally were not meant to be. Like those were not my calling.
Oh my God, yes. No, this okay, so I'm gonna throw out to the audience a story, a quick little one. But I remember when I first moved to LA, I had three different paths that I could follow. I could just jump right into the film industry. This was when I wanted to do film. I could jump right into the film industry. I could get like a digital video, social media gig that's kind of like in the middle, so I could like start getting into that area, or I could do an admin job, which I knew I could do, and do film on the side. So I was like, I have three different paths. I ended up I remember I ended up getting one of the social media gigs and I was so excited. It lasted 2 weeks. I hated it.
Yeah.
I left promptly and then ended up all of a sudden, and I remember this was one of those things where I was like, why didn't this work out? I was so upset with myself, so down. Next thing I knew, opportunities started just landing into my lap.
Yeah.
I did this like production assistant boot camp. And next thing I knew, I was on set like at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, I was on the set of CSI. I was on the set of like all these big productions. And I was like, wait, what? But it occurred to me that it was just I had all these opportunities landing in my lap. If I had kept going with it, I could have done it. I got scared was what
Yeah.
ended up happening. And I ended up backing off. But like it was one of those moments that you realize you're just like, the universe is trying to tell me something. It
Yes.
didn't want me in that stupid social media job. It didn't want me to get an admin job, which I could have gotten, but I spent 3 weeks applying and nothing was coming. And I was like, what the fuck? But next thing I know, I'm on set and I was like, this was way too easy. But
Yeah.
it's exactly that kind of moment, right? Like the moment when it's like the universe is trying to tell me something.
Yeah, I definitely at the time I wasn't very spiritual. I didn't know what that really meant, but then now, obviously I've been pretty spiritual for the past like 2 years, like year and a half, 2 years, and it's definitely hit home with me that I was like, wow, like this, all of this has panned out. Literally, at the time it didn't look perfect, but it really did pan out perfectly because now I'm here where I am, and I actually don't feel like I need to hit that next thing. I'm like actually content. I'm happy with what I do. So
Which is what we all want.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Right? We all want to feel content where we are. So I guess I feel like a lot of this journey, it kind of occurred when you kind of got that like feeling of something being off.
yeah.
I guess what would you kind of tell people? Like if tell the audience, say, if they have that feeling or how to recognize that feeling, maybe.
Ooh. I think the like recognizing it really is just something that you kind of have to dip into yourself. Like I could sit here and tell you, okay, like here's how you recognize it, but it feels different to everybody. I think but obviously I'm a Pisces, so I'm very intuitive. Like I always run with
True.
that because my Pisces mug says
Oh,
intuitive.
you're an old soul. That's what Pisces are.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that. I have a lot of deja vu, which kind of freaks me out. But so I think just if something doesn't feel right, I think everybody knows that like gut feeling,
Mhm.
hopefully, where you either like feel it internally or you kind of sit down and kind of look at the bigger picture and look at what you're doing. And if that doesn't satisfy you, if you're like, okay, if I'm going to be doing this literally for the next 5, 10, 15 years, and that doesn't satisfy you, then that means that there's room for growth. So I think, however you recognize it, if it's a gut feeling, if it's just maybe you do quarterly check ins with yourself, I don't know, whatever you do to kind of evaluate your life, business or personal, and, thinking about, okay, well, if doesn't make me happy, ultimately, like, let's be honest, if something doesn't make you happy, something needs to change, then maybe start brainstorming like what is the next step, like what would make me happy, is there anything that it doesn't have to be a whole career shift, maybe there's something within your career that you can slightly
Mhm.
shift. um like when I lost my full-time job with the social media marketing because of COVID, I started doing social media management, just freelance, because that's what I thought I was meant to do. I loved social media. And then I got into coaching, and I actually was trying, I was doing business coaching for really honestly just coaches and social media managers. But it was again, I had that gut feeling again. I was like, I don't think I'm meant to do business coaching just for like, social media managers, VAs, other business coaches. And that's when I pivoted into health and fitness, because I was like, I have experience growing
Mm.
a personal training business, especially online too. So that's what
And now
ultimately.
you're where you are, which is awesome. And there's gonna be constant pivot for everyone listening, by the way. It's gonna be constant pivots. Like this is not the end of Maddie's
Oh,
journey.
no.
It's not the end of my
Oh, yes.
journey. Like,
Yeah.
even if you feel content and happy, there's always gonna be something throwing you for a loop, and or just, you change your mind. Something happens, you change.
There's so many pivots, not necessarily like, niche or ideal client wise, but I'm pivoting the way that my business model looks. I'm actually moving away from one to many, or away from one to one, and moving more towards one to
Mhm.
many. Just because personally, a lot of people can do this. I personally can't. One-on-one takes a lot of energy, I
It
think, for
does.
anybody, but for me, like, it really pulls out energy. And it wasn't until I had 7 one-on-one clients, 7 one-on-one calls a week on top of other calls, that I was like, whoa, this is too much.
This is
I
too
gotta I
much.
gotta narrow this
Yeah,
down.
it's like it's little things like when you do your evaluation, when you check in with yourself and you realize the little things that can change. Doesn't have to be whole career shifts, but it can even be personal lives, like people who maybe are okay in their jobs, but they just need to shift something about what they're doing in their free time or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's really important. So I'm also curious, as kind of like some as we're kind of wrapping this up a little bit. Um, so I know we talked about, like you talked about, kind of listening to yourself, checking with self, identifying where something feels a little bit wrong. Something I've noticed, whether that was in myself or also in other people, is that because we talk a lot about, you know, your ego, your perfectionism talking to you, I think sometimes we hear that inner voice that's telling us something's wrong as a negative voice, as like we sometimes think that maybe, oh, that's my perfectionism talking, that's my imposter syndrome talking, I shouldn't listen to it because it's leading me down the wrong path. um Out of curiosity, do you have like any insight on that, any
Yeah, I would say I definitely have those negative voices. But something, I think I mentioned this to you before, but anytime I have a negative thought, I try and really sit with it instead of pushing it away and being
That's
like, oh my
important.
gosh, that's my ego. Oh, that's imposter syndrome, whatever it is. I really sit with it and I'm like, okay, well, why am I having this thought? And is there a way to turn this more positive? Because obviously, law of attraction, the more that you really dwell on something, the more that it's just going to keep coming up. So
So sit with it,
instead of
yeah.
yeah, and instead of just pushing it away, like a lot of people I know do, where they just kind of hoard it in the back of them, it comes out in like way worse version.
Can confirm.
So yeah, and that's why I really try to address my feelings as much as I can. Obviously, I'm not perfect. Like there's times where there's certain phases, like I experienced it a couple of weeks ago, where I really was trying to push and not listen to the positive voice in my head that was like, you need to like slow down. And I wasn't listening to that. And then it ultimately, I needed to take basically a whole week off last week. And so that was a real wake up call, where I was like, all right, there's some shifts that need to happen. And I need to really address not only the negative things, but the positive thoughts that, my own body is trying to protect myself, and I need to listen to it.
Awesome. Oh my god. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and for giving us all that was really great advice about, like, sitting with the negative thoughts, because you never really know if it's even actually that negative.
Yeah, sometimes they're not. Like, sometimes it's not, like, take rest. Like, that's not really a positive or a
Well,
negative.
it's kinda like when we have friends or family who, like, we feel like are criticizing us, but sometimes they're actually giving something really great that you need to listen to, you know? Like, every so often that this happens.
Yeah, and I try to, like, even during the times where, like I said, like, there were people in my life that, yes, they were supportive, but they were almost, I guess, challenging me is the word,
Mhm.
to make sure I really was, like, doing myself good.
Mhm.
It was then where I still, to this day, like, any criticism, any positive criticism, constructive criticism, I listen, I sit with it, before I even backlash or anything, unless it's something
Mhm.
absolutely ridiculous,
Well, yeah, I
obviously.
mean, there are certain things.
Yeah, there's certain things where I'm like, no, 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 I'm shutting you down right then and there. But yeah, it's like you just have to, and again, like there's some people that can't do it just because maybe they're a little headstrong, who knows? But I
I'm a
think,
Taurus, can confirm that that was definitely me of pushing things. And then
yeah,
I realized if I sat there and thought about it for long enough, I was like, wait, that kind of makes sense.
yeah,
Doesn't mean
that's
I'm gonna
something.
do it, but it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, that's something I'm trying to teach my boyfriend because he is hardcore Taurus. Like, he literally has the hardest head I think I've ever met. Oh gosh, it's bad, but I'm trying to teach him. I'm trying to not like force him
Yeah.
to do it, but just take
So
life slower, you know.
yeah. So what's kind of, I guess, to wrap this all up, like what's kind of your final piece of advice for anyone who wants to go their own way and go off the beaten path?
Yeah, I think that obviously your own way is called your own way for a reason. It doesn't mean not going to college. It doesn't mean, getting eloped. Like, it doesn't mean anything crazy. Like it's you, like it's your own way. And I think just doing things for yourself. I think out of this whole thing, I've learned not to appeal other people as much as you appeal your own self, because you have to live with yourself every single day. You don't have to live with these other people every single day if you don't want to. Cut out toxic people. Like, if there's any toxicity in your life, like cut it out, if you can. And yeah, just do whatever feels good to you and is best for yourself, really.
One of my favorite quotes that I actually wrote some time back, and I was like, wow, I'm so smart. But I was always so proud of myself for it. And I was like, comfort and happiness starts with liking the one person you have to live with every day without exception. And
Yeah,
that's you. That's the only person.
yes, literally. You're in your own head all day, every day. Like, you have to listen to yourself every day. So
So if you don't like you, then, you know,
do
how
something
are you
about
going to like your life?
that. Make it, it's small, big, shift, whatever you want to do.
But yeah, thank you so much for telling your story again. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. If you guys want to go follow Maddie or, join her on her journey, Maddie, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is Instagram. I'm on Instagram all day, every day, basically. So my handle is at Madeline underscore
I'll
Eddi.
put it in the show notes.
Yeah. So that's the best place to find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Um, as you all know, I will be doing these interviews, by the way, probably once a month or so. If I'll see what happens, we'll see. And I'm excited to see you guys back again next week for another great episode. So thank you again, Maddie, and we will see y'all later.